recording. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Mary Hambleton with Soul Canyon Training and Development. I've got Kevin Barrett, my co-host from True North Skills Development, and we are rocking our Wednesday Lunch and Learn. So I really appreciate you guys joining us. We're covering one of my favorite topics, and that's emotional intelligence. About 20 years, almost 30 years ago, I was given a book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And that was such a life-changing book for me. It was one of those moments where I thought, if everybody in the world knew this stuff, the world would be a better place. If the people I was that I was in charge of, if they knew all of this stuff, my life as a manager would be so much easier. So from a very selfish, which is not very emotionally intelligent place, I thought, we need to teach people this stuff. If you people would know, and that's when I realized I needed to do a lot more work. So I've been diving into this topic for years now, and I'm excited to share it with all of you. Does everybody got a workbook? If not, Kevin is so sweet. He put it in chat.
Yep.
It's just a little starter kit. This is not the full-blown class. I have a half-day class that I teach, which goes further. And then this is part of a weekend retreat that I also teach. So this is a down and dirty 1 hour, let's get started type of thing. And I am going to share my screen and get it to the place where it is just one thing. There we go. And we are going to hide these floating controls. There we go. Now those annoying little boxes should be gone and everybody should be able to see this. And now I can't see any of you. So I'm going to be flying blind. But my question for all of you, and this is very interactive as all of my trainings are, is what is emotional intelligence in the first place? Feel free to unmute or dump it into chat, but what does it mean to you when we talk about emotional intelligence?
Anyone?
Oh, come on, I have it right there on that sheet. Emotional intelligence, it's been called EQ, it's been called emotional quotient. Say that again, Kevin.
Emotional intelligence quotient, or
quotient, yes, quotient, that's a word I can't hardly say. It's the ability basically to understand, and it's basically, if we think about it, it's thinking about your emotions. It's being able to understand them and use them to manage our own emotions, but also to look at it from another person's perspective and understand their emotions and where they're coming from. It's it's the ability to reduce stress in the situation and to communicate effectively, to be able to empathize with others, to overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. And doesn't that sound like something we desperately need right now?
Yeah, definitely. And we got a couple of responses in chat there, Mary. So respond versus react and having empathy.
Absolutely. And empathy is really difficult because even when we try, it's hard to put ourselves exactly in that person's shoes to be able to actually see it from their perspective. We can try. Sorry, I've got road construction going on in my driveway right now. So that was a weird sound, and hopefully it wasn't something that needs my attention. But emotional intelligence basically is thinking about how you feel. I did my connect. My little clicker quit working again. I just tried it. What else do we have in chat? Let me see how I can get. Okay. access to my work computer since it's in Dropbox.
I've got it.
Did
I've
you-
sent it to her.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try it one more time, this share thing, and see if I can't get this thing to go. Okay. So basically, EQ allows us to identify our emotions and to identify the emotions of others, and then learn to manage our emotions. And we can't necessarily manage other people's emotions, but we can acknowledge them. We can by knowing what their emotions are or where they're coming from, we can make it better, not worse. Because oftentimes what happens is we're not understanding what their issue is, and we, by our own actions and by our own words, we can make it worse for others. Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
I've been I at one point was notorious for throwing gas on a fire. I basically, whenever people were explosive around me, my sense of humor got me in trouble, and it would make the matter worse. Or I would put my emotion back to it. So that tit for tat started happening, and we never solved the problem. All we were irritated with each other. The 4 key components of emotional intelligence that we're going to cover is self-awareness. Really understanding who you are and what you're about is your job. It really is diving into your personal mission and vision, really understanding what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, what turns you on, what turns you off, where you might be have blind spots, because we all have our own personal blind spots, and where your hot buttons are. This takes a lot of work, and this is an area I've been working in for years. And I love being able to walk people down the path of our 8-week personal transformation program, because we dive into this. Who are you and what you're all about? And then when we start talking about what are your hot buttons, how do you manage your life? How do you adapt to other people? That's also your job. So those are all real self-focused. And then we bring it into how do we interact with others? That social awareness, that empathy and service, love for your fellow man, that sort of thing. And then the final piece is our social skills. How do we communicate with each other? How do we avoid miscommunication? Because I think that's one of our biggest challenges is we all communicate, or we all talk. We don't necessarily communicate. And there's oftentimes miscommunication that happens, where we just went through our conflict resolution class not too long ago. And if you're interested in that, I can send you a recording of it. But conflict is all around us. And it's that person, if you've ever been around someone who's really good at solving conflict, it gives a sense of peace. It gives a sense of being heard by everyone. And I think we can find common ground if we can all get that feeling of being heard and understood. Daniel Goleman, in his work, Emotional Intelligence, which that, like I said, that book is probably about 30 years old now. And then he wrote another book called Working with Emotional Intelligence. He's got a lot of different podcasts and different things. He's a fascinating individual. I love his work, but he said 75% of your success in life are your people skills. It's not your technical skills. So how we work with others is basically our success. And when we talk to folks like SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers, they say that 75% of careers are derailed by just a few things. One of them is the inability to handle stress or pressure in a positive manner. Like when people are under stress, they strike out at other people or they melt down. That has caused many people to lose careers. The inability to see things when the going gets rough, or their inability to handle impulses. So they make bad decisions, communicate in a poor manner, don't check their own emotions. Those are things that emotionally intelligent individuals can handle. And the cool thing about emotional intelligence is it's not a fixed number. It's something that you can build. Your intelligence level, your IQ is pretty much dictated by your genetics, basically, and the way that you were raised, who, those sorts of things can really affect your IQ. Your EQ is something that you can continually build on and grow. And that's the thing that really excites me, because that's where the sweet spot is. That's where your ability to have a successful life and a successful career come from, is your people skills. So thank goodness we can build on that, right? So when we break down those 4 components and we talk about self-awareness, those are things that are, what are your core values? What are your beliefs? Where did they come from? Why do you believe a certain way? I've always recommended journaling. In every training you ever attend with me, I'll say journal, 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 because this is the insight into who you are, what you're all about, what happened from your perspective, so that when you get past some of those emotional, like, turmoil places, you can go back and look, oh, this is how I was thinking. This is why I thought that way. It is a fantastic tool if you're going through trauma. It's a fantastic tool if you're wanting to make change, or if you're in a relationship that's really stressful. I always recommend journaling. We're our own best teacher if we listen to ourselves. One of the exercises that I do in my weekend retreat is think of a situation that you're in currently, write it all out, and then pretend that is your best friend. What advice would you give her? Write that out. How come we can give our friends and our relatives, even our coworkers, this fantastic advice, but we ourselves get stuck, locked up? Anybody got any ideas on that?
It's an amazing conundrum to me.
It is. We have internal wisdom that I really truly feel can fix us, can solve our problems. And we just need to dig for it. And oftentimes it'll show up when journaling. The other question that I always like to ask is, lock up. Nope, go back. Go back. What is a true reward for you? A lot of this knowledge of a true reward can come from the 5 languages of love. I don't know if you've read that book, but it is a fantastic book. It talks about the 5 languages of love. Everybody has 1 or 2 of them that is pretty high up on the list for them. And the interesting thing is, when we're interacting with others, we oftentimes give them what we would want. And if it's not their language of love, it misfires. When I went through this with my partner, his language of love is different than my language of love. And so he is constantly giving me praise and saying, thank you for this and thank you for that. And it's like, that's they're just words to me. If you say those words and touch me at the same time, I might actually believe them. But for me, it's just like, those are being polite. What I really want is, I want time. Because time is infinite. And there's only so much time, right? Receiving gifts is not one of mine, but I've been around people that if you don't bring them something, if you don't share with them, give them big, acknowledgement by gifts, they don't feel appreciated and valued. It's a very fascinating piece of work. And I think that, combined with our personality work that we do, and of course, we're not going to go diving into this, but I do want everyone to know that out on our website, we do have a free personality assessment that you can take, and it'll tell you all about you. When we talk about self-awareness, we also need to understand our own emotions. And that requires really thinking about how you're feeling. It's real easy to go to that, I'm angry. But the problem with being I'm angry is you can't fix anger. So now you need to go underneath anger and find out what it is that's causing you to be angry, to be frustrated, to be scared, to be bored even. What is it that's causing these emotions? Because there's where you can, the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's where you can make changes happen. And so really understanding what are your emotions, again, goes back to journaling, figuring out, why am I angry? Well, I'm angry because I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I don't understand this. I'm frustrated because I need different type of learning. I'm trying to learn a program right now, and I am a kinesthetic learner, so I have to play with it. And when I'm playing with it, I don't know what I've done. So I really need somebody there with me while I'm playing with it so that I can learn it. And they keep sending me videos. And I'm like, I'm never going to learn it that way. And so now I'm frustrated. And so we had a conversation, cleared up our communication, and we're going to do a one-on-one where I'm actually sitting down with my computer, showing him all the buttons that I'm pushing so that I can understand why I can't seem to make this thing work. But rather than be angry and frustrated and discouraged, you have to learn to communicate, which brings you back down to that self-management. How are you going to manage your own emotions? How are you going to be able to communicate with somebody what you're actually feeling without attacking them? So one of my favorite quotes by Marcus Aurelius says, if you're pained by external things, it's not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them that's within your power, and it's within your power to wipe them out right now. So rather than feel frustrated and then angry because somebody's not doing something or somebody is doing something, being able to communicate with them and express how you feel and how you're interpreting the situation will bring you to an understanding where you guys can work through it. Self-management is all about finding out what's going on and being able to manage the emotion. We have a really great program called Managing Stress and Mastering Change. And this is, in a nutshell, what it is basically whatever's happening in the moment, to be able to stop yourself. I don't recommend doing the meditation pose in front of an angry customer or while you're driving down the road, but to really ask yourself, how bad is it really? Bringing it down to just the facts and then confirm the facts, because oftentimes we misinterpret the facts because we see things differently than somebody else. Remove all the nonsense and emotion, give it a number. How bad is it really? Is it a 1 or a 10 being extreme? And then what do you want to do about it? What resources do you have to put towards it? And what that does is it takes you out of your emotional side and puts you in a thinking space. It puts you back in your head where emotions don't live, and allows you to problem solve in a way that is productive. But really, self-management is taking ownership of your life and your behaviors, taking responsibility for your life, for your choices and your actions. It's like being an adult. But a lot of us are running around still at 5 because we are running on our emotional self. And our emotions sometimes can lie to us and make us feel things that aren't really true because we're looking at it through a different lens or a different perspective. We're not understanding what that other person's perspective is. Which
Mary,
brings me,
I think this is often the part too where we feel victimhood, right? If we don't go through the self-awareness and the self-management and understand what part we play in that, it's very easy to just sit in victimhood that this is all happening to me, right? And so you really need those pieces to help you move beyond that and get a better understanding of where you're really at.
absolutely, the damning and condemning that we do inside our head, from that voice inside our head, the damning and condemning that we do, not only to others, but to ourselves, right? We damn and condemn others, situations, and ourselves. This isn't fair. It's really easy to go into victimhood or blaming others, but stepping back and saying, well, maybe I didn't explain myself well. Maybe I didn't communicate the way they needed to hear it. Maybe I misinterpreted that look or tone or situation. And giving people grace, because sometimes there's a lot going on in people's lives that we're not even aware of. You know, you might be upset that your coworker didn't, did the eye roll when you asked them to help you do something, or you delegated something to somebody and they didn't respond in a positive manner. They may have done an eye roll or a sigh or whatever. You don't know what you're asking of them. I had a situation where I was coaching a couple of gals, and one of them, and they worked together, one of them was really off put by the other one's response when she delegated. And it got to be a real tit for tat situation. And at first I thought, well, maybe this one gal is being a victim, acting like a victim. But then I realized that when things were delegated to her, oftentimes it was towards the end of the day, like at 4:00. And her interpretation was, I need to get it done before I leave, which wasn't necessarily the intention of the person who was delegating. And what was happening was, in her mind, she was saying, it's 4:00. I'm not going to be able to leave on time. If I don't leave by 4:30, I'm going to get stuck in traffic. I won't be home till 6:30. My kids are going to be home by themselves for an hour. If I left at 4 or 4:30, between 4 and 4:30, I can get home by 5 when my kids get home. But if I don't leave, down in California, if you miss that window of opportunity in driving, you can get stuck in traffic for hours. And I said, have you ever told her that? And she said, no, she's my boss. I can't tell her that. And I said, but you can roll your eyes at her and sigh. See, that's not really being mature. That's not being able to say, can you look at her and say, do you need this right now? Or will tomorrow morning be fine? How soon do you need this? Get some clarification. Let her know the impact. Because for the other gal, she thought, oh, it's no big deal even if she leaves at 5. Oftentimes we put people in a situation that is a no-win situation for them, and we don't even know it. So being able to understand where that other person is coming from is huge. Covey tells us to seek first to understand and then to be understood. So when you see eye rolls, when you see, don't call it out and say, I see an eye roll, but say, I get the feeling like we're not connected here, or, there's a misunderstanding, or was I unclear? Find out where they're coming from first. I talk about the pitcher of water technique in so many of my different classes. It's really a fabulous tool to be able to say, help me understand how you're seeing the situation, and then share with them how you're seeing the situation. With these two gals, when I said, have you ever explained to her that if you don't leave by 4:30 that you get stuck in traffic for an hour and a half? No. She's my boss. I can't complain like that. I'm like, but your eye roll and sigh is a complaint. She's picking it up. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Oftentimes that's what you'll hear. Oh, I never thought of it that way. So if we just be clear with each other on how we're seeing the situation, I think we will have much better relationships. Social awareness is also your ability to accurately notice emotions in other people. Which requires that you listen with not only your eyes, your ears, your heart, So you really have a lot of feedback coming in when you see others. Being able to manage conflict is you being able to recognize their emotions and what's coming, what's happening for them. Things like there's different levels of emotion, right? So when we think of happy, there's glad, it's like I'm just feeling good, I'm happy. Satisfied, thrilled. Sad has different levels. Disappointment, heartbreak, depressed, angry. You can be irritated, you can be frustrated, or you can be furious. Afraid, anxious, intimidated, terrified. Ashamed. We don't often talk about this emotion, and this is emotion that is oftentimes at the base of a lot of our conflict. Is we're ashamed by our own behavior, or we're ashamed that we're afraid. We're ashamed we're angry. Ashamed is a feeling of guilt. It's really uncomfortable, but you can be absolutely mortified and then lock up and not show up.
Mary, Stephanie has got a great comment here. Standard business advice to working women has always been never bring up your personal family time, management issues with your boss. It's a kiss of death for future promotion.
Absolutely. Yep. It has been a really difficult place for a lot of women. We've had to make choices. We've had to make sacrifices that men haven't had to make in the business world. Our younger women are not necessarily having to make those choices as much, but there's still a lot of pressure on women because we have multiple roles and multiple priorities. And when you have multiple priorities, you can run into conflict within yourself. It's a tough place to be. My personal belief is if we are open, honest, and transparent and kind, we have a stronger team. And we're going to move into building emotional intelligence in your team, which there's a great book out there called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Should have gotten those books over here. And then there's another one called Team Emotional Intelligence. Fantastic, not team, teams. Fantastic bodies of work. So in a nutshell, they talk about in building your teams, building empathy. We must learn to listen with our eyes, ears, and heart. But for our team, recognizing that differences and understanding how how to work with people who are different than us makes us more effective. So if we can build higher team emotional intelligence, we're going to have a team that is high functioning, hitting the marks, and it's a fun place to work. It's a place that you want to be at. And I think that's what everybody really wants. Strong relationships built on mutual trust, it takes open, honest transparency. And that is a scary place to be. But I like to ask people, how do you get trust? Anyone? How do you get trust?
By doing what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely. So I built this workshop for a company that has a lot of young individuals working for them, and they are shelter for animals. And I asked them, how do you build trust in let's say a stray dog? And they said, well, you have to show up. You have to do what you say you're going to do. You have to be kind. You have to be friendly. and you can't push them. And I said, how do you build trust in your coworker? It's the same thing. You have to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. You have to be able to be humble enough to be wrong. You have to be able to be open enough to look at it from their perspective, to learn something else, something new. And you have to be trusting of them first.
Even when you don't want to.
First. Yeah, even when you don't want to. And I've been burned. I mean, I have, but I always like to say it's my karma. So I'm going to do the right thing, because at the end of the day, at the end of my life, I have to be able to look myself in the mirror and say I did the best I could do. So when we talk about emotional and building teams, in Team EQ, there's 4 different key components to that. And that is emotional awareness. So really it's all about observing, taking time to learn the tendencies of yourself and others in the group, being aware. So if you know your behavior causes stress for someone else on the team, change your behavior. Modify it to help your fellow man. I had a coworker that did not like me coming in happy and bouncy and jumping on her like a tiger every morning. I had to learn not to talk to her in the morning, just to say good morning and go about my day, because she did not want that interaction. By me changing my behavior, which is the only thing I have the choice of, it improved our relationship. But it's really all about being aware. Emotional management, each team member doing what they can to lift the other emotional mood, meaning don't be the wet blanket that comes in spreading that negativity all over. Strive to get in a place where every team member is thinking and acting with the benefit of the team in mind. So more team focus than individual focus. What's best for the team may not always be best for me. And I'm not talking about self-sacrificing to the point where you no longer exist or you're not important. But we all know that there are times when we have to take one for the team. We all know that when the chips are down, sometimes we have to pick up the ball and help carry the ball for our team members. If we're really honest in business, and when I talk about time management, in business, we have waves. Like we're super, super busy. We couldn't add another thing to our plate. And then there are times when there's a little bit of a lull. If we can learn to lean on each other during those times of lull, then it levels the playing field for everyone. Puts less stress on everyone. Internal relationships, how the team handles conflict. And I really believe that companies need to clarify this. How do we handle things? What's our culture? How do we handle conflict? Anybody ever have one of those pot stirrers? You know, the people that talk about everybody when nobody else is around. Like they complain about things to other people. I like to call them pot stirrers. Anybody have a negative pot stirrer that they've had around? I had one that was sucking the will of the team and definitely the will of the supervisor. And I said, we're going to make a rule. If somebody comes to you about somebody on our team, you're to look at them and say, I know they wouldn't do that intentionally. why don't the three of us sit down and talk it out? That stopped like that pot stirring behavior, because she knew that if she went to somebody and talked trash about her team member, that the other team member would say, we're not going to go that way. We're not going to go there. We're going to sit down, have a cup of coffee, and talk it out. Now, I didn't expect them to hug it out, but I did expect them to talk it out. And that, like I said, that behavior stopped almost immediately, because there was no reward for that person that was spreading the rumors or getting the sympathy. She was really good at playing victim, and she would get sympathy. But when we started saying, I know they wouldn't do it intentionally, let's talk about it, she didn't want to talk about it. What she wanted was the sympathy. When we talk about external relationships, it's really about healthy relationships outside of the core team that can benefit the whole team. Because when you're brainstorming a problem, you can bring in different perspectives if you have relationships that are outside of the team. It broadens your opportunities. It gives you a wider base. This is why I think being involved in nonprofits in your area are really healthy for companies. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that know that, because you'll see that they can give so many hours to different nonprofits. And so it's like filling your tank and getting new ideas and new perspectives by giving to your community. Team emotional intelligence is about the team learning to be more flexible, more resilient. When things come your way that kind of knock you down, and challenges happen, the team can come together and problem solve it together. And oftentimes someone will have when you put your idea and my idea together, we'll have a better idea. It's that whole collaborate. But with any skill, with anything that you do in life, you need to have help, right? I really believe in mentors and mirrors. And what I mean by mentors are someone that can bring somebody alongside and help them through something that they haven't done yet. But does anybody know what I mean by mirrors? Anybody got a guess on that one?
Isn't that mirroring back somebody's emotions to them, what you're perceiving that they are sending to you, kind of like in an active listening manner? This is what I'm perceiving this means.
Yes, and really, Stephanie, that's true. So oftentimes we don't recognize what the impact of our behaviors are. I know for myself, when I get in a hurry, when I'm pushed on time, I move super quick. Like I move twice the speed of the rest of my team. And it comes across as frantic. And to be able to have somebody who is a good mirror come to me and say, hey, Mary, when you're in that mode, it comes across really frantic and pushy. If you can just take a step back and tell us what you need, we're happy to help. That's a mirror. A mirror might also be someone who says, hey, that was a fantastic way that you handled so-and-so. It can be a coworker, it can be a spouse, it can be your kid. Kids are great mirrors because they hold nothing back. But mirrors are mentors, and mirrors can really help you grow if it's done in a positive manner. It's not a correction. It's not a tell you how to do it. It's a, hey, did you notice? Working on a team that really trusts one another, that really can lean on each other, you can make incredible leaps and bounds. It can be a fun experience. I've had a couple of teams that have just been unbelievable, and we've accomplished so much, and it gives everybody a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment. I highly recommend team building. Both Kevin and I are proponents of team building and offer team building. There's lots of different ways to do team building. I was just brainstorming with a gal who owns a fishing company, and we're talking about putting together a fishing team building session. So we'll see how this all works. We've got a couple of ideas out there, but I'm talking about real fish, not fake. Yeah, real fish. Regular one-on-ones with the team. I just had an opportunity to do customer service training for a company that just received amazing awards for their customer service. And one of the things that they do is they do regular one-on-ones with each other. So they give feedback to each other. They do one-on-ones with their with the owner of the company. They do one-on-ones with their immediate supervisors, and they do team lunches. Every Friday they have lunch together, where it's just a big, huge table that everybody sits around, and they all get together and talk it through. So they leave it at work and go have a wonderful weekend. It's pretty amazing. Developmental planning. I'm working with a gal right now that's going to be doing a presentation on developing company culture. And one of the things that her and I talked about is the fact that sometimes you build your employee to a place where they outgrow your company. And she said that is such a fantastic feeling that you see them go off and live the dream that they wanted for their life. That doesn't necessarily fit in the scope of the company, but it's such a satisfaction that, hey, they finally get to do what they've always wanted to do. And I wish them all the luck in the world. Later, they can become your client, or later they can become a referral partner for you, or a really good mentor. I thought that was a fantastic idea. Grow them until they're strong enough to leave. Kind of like what we do with kids.
Yeah. Mary, it's such a mindset too, right? Because a lot of people, their mindset is, well, I don't want them to, they might take my job, right? Or I don't want them to grow because I don't want to lose them. But in reality, by not allowing them to grow, you are setting yourself up to lose them. So
yeah, you may end up with an employee you don't really even want because they haven't grown with your company. I mean, in all honesty, somebody who's not willing to grow and build within themselves and is just stuck may not be able to stay with your company as your company grows. Somebody asked her, they said, well, aren't you worried there'll be competition to you? And she said, no, because there's plenty enough for everybody. And it's that abundant mentality that and that love of for the person, not what that person can do for you, that I think attracts that high functioning team. Because if you're helping them grow and become this amazing person, they may never leave because they're happy where they're at. So what can you do today? I mean, it really boils down to, what do you want to do with this information? I've read a lot of books. Some of them I've applied and some of them I haven't. The ones that I've applied that have become my go-to books that I can go back to are the ones that make a difference in my life. They're the ones that I'm implementing. Some of them are just good information. When you pick up the idea of building your emotional intelligence, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of things that you can do. I included an IQ quiz on the back of this. The last sheet is number 1 through 10, with 10 being highly likely. And it's just to give, there's no pass or fail. It's just to give you an insight into, what do you want to do with this information? How do you want to grow? Does anybody have any questions or thoughts?
Anything to add?
Anything to add? So with that, I encourage you to get out there and take a look at some of the information out there on emotional intelligence, to really dive into and grab a journal and really dive into what makes you tick, what kind of emotions show up when certain things happen, how you would rather respond. Shoot us a text, give us a call, shoot us an email with your thoughts. We're happy to help. Speaking of helping, look what's coming up, Kevin. July 18th, Excel Level 1.
Yeah, this is our basic level class of Excel Essentials, and this is all about really assuming that you know absolutely nothing, which we find even people that have been using Excel for a long time will discover that they picked up a lot of stuff that they didn't know they could do. So it's a great class, a really good foundational class to get you started on using Excel more effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. If you're further along than that, take a look at either one of our websites. There's a level 2 and a level 3 coming up. We've offered level 4 and a few other specialty Excel classes for those that want to go further, but typically we do those for intact teams like credit unions and banks and nuclear power plants. We do house calls. Kevin's getting ready to head out to Idaho for us to do some training. So if you have a team that you'd like us to come in and do a training for, give us a call. We can do it live or we can do it on Zoom. And then next month, it's Kevin. July 3rd?
3rd, yes. From noon until 1, that's our free lunch and learn. And we're going to really focus in on that one, on strategies for achieving greater results through effective feedback and delegation. So we're going to talk about how to clearly communicate your expectations, how to provide constructive guidance while empowering others to take ownership and utilize their strengths. This one has been, we actually had this a couple of times before, and I have some restructured material, but it's really valuable information. So looking forward to it next July 3rd, or next month, July 3rd.
Fantastic. So guys, thank you very much. I'm going to stop this share and take a look at everybody's faces. There we are. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, feedback?
I just wanted to say thank you. Really great information. I think I got a lot of good takeaways for both my personal and professional life. So thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Really appreciate it. We will see you all. Have a happy, safe 4th if we don't see you before then. And like I said, as you're going through this material or if thoughts come in, shoot us an email, drop us a text, give us a phone call. We'd be happy to help.
All right. Thanks all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.